Before we start today's episode of the I'm F.I.N.E podcast, we want to make sure to thank our partners at Trio. Don't wait, be ready, and connect with Trio. FAFSA applications are now open, and the sooner you apply, the higher the chances you have of receiving the full grant. The Trio staff at Governor State University are the perfect people to help you out. Trio can help with the financial aid processes and scholarship searches. Trio can also provide fee waivers for admissions applications, assist with the admission application processes, online tutoring, help with GED referrals, and provide payments for the GED test. Trio provides various avenues for career exploration as well as resume and interview preparation. Trio can also help you understand and complete your FAFSA application. So if you're ready to take the next step on your educational journey, contact Trio at 708-235-3352 for more information, or visit their website at www.govstu.edu/TRIOEOC. Welcome to another episode of the I'm F.I.N.E podcast, where a couple of knuckle-dragging veterans unpack the world of mental health as unprofessionally and informally as possible. I am Eric Peterson.
And I'm Brad Stozic.
And today's episode is all about forgiveness. We're going to define it, discuss the weight of unforgiveness, the process and benefits of forgiveness, what it means to forgive others versus forgiving yourself, and the role of forgiveness in post-traumatic growth. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the journey as we do our best to take you from being freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional to truly being fine about forgiveness.
Welcome to the I'm F.I.N.E podcast with your freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional hosts, Eric Peterson and Brad Stozic.
You know, have you ever seen the movie Just Friends with Ryan Reynolds and
I was thinking about this when we were talking about this episode, but yeah.
You
Forgiveness.
I was gonna sing that right when you more than saying sorry.
Yeah, I thought about this. Yeah. I thought as I forget her name, Anna Faris.
Yeah.
Anna Faris was singing that super funny movie.
Hilarious.
Also a decent Christmas movie. I would count it as a Christmas movie. Have to ask Santa this Christmas. Yeah, I didn't realize we didn't. You and I talked when we talk about what episodes we're going to do. Mm-hmm. We talked about forgiveness, and you were like, "I think we've done that already." And we looked through the list, and we're like, "No, we haven't." And we were talking about it, and it's something that I think is more important. Is important now more than ever.
Yep.
Because of just what society's been like since 2020. It's just been kind of weird, man. You know what I mean? And everybody's stressed out. Everybody's dealing with stuff. Everybody's taking their anger out on other people. Not everybody, but you see it happen a lot, I feel like.
Do I? No.
You hear it happen a lot.
No, yeah.
And you feel it. And you smell it happen a lot.
Sure do.
No, it's just, and so I did want to do an episode about how important it is to forgive people, just because I see the fallout from people who've not forgiven others, for people that don't forgive themselves. I've done a lot of these things. Like, I've made a lot of these mistakes, and I thought about you a lot, because in some of the episodes you've talked about how one of the biggest things you ever had to do was forgive the doctors that made a mistake during a surgery that resulted in you losing your vision.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to talk about it. I'm glad that you want to talk about it. It's been a little bit of a break, dude.
It has.
It's been a little time. You graduated college.
I graduated college.
You're a fucking educated person now. It's weird. Do you feel weird being here?
Yeah.
It's like this is below me. Be on a podcast with this asshole.
Yep.
Dude, congratulations,
Thank
man.
you.
I'm really proud. That's really cool. It's awesome that you did that.
Yeah.
I took a vacation.
Much needed.
Yeah, much needed. Up in the Northwoods of Wisconsin, where it's beautiful. Mm. I saw every type of wildlife that exists in Wisconsin. I saw a bear.
Did you?
Yeah.
Nice.
It was a little bear. It was a little bear cub ran across the road, and I was like looking for Mama Bear. But
did you see the otters?
I saw an otter, but I didn't see the otters that I always see. I forgot I told you about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love those fucking things, man. They're cool as shit. So we had to take a little bit of a break.
Yep.
And we picked back up again. And over the break, the other cool thing that happened, and we were talking about this before we started recording, I'm getting more and more people that like will come up to me and tell me that they started listening to our podcast. They heard an episode, thought this was funny, thought we said something that really resonated with them. And like that always means so much. Like I wonder if the people that have podcasts that have like billions of viewers still feel that way. Because I feel like I would always feel that way.
Oh,
just
absolutely.
like insanely thankful and grateful that somebody like listens to us. Fucking chuckleheads, and they're like, oh, I like listening. This isn't bad. Yeah,
right?
They're not that dumb.
My entire life, everyone's like, shut up, Brad. And now people want to listen to me.
So it always feels good to hear that.
It
so
does.
I really appreciate, we cannot thank you enough out there for just listening, commenting on our stuff, liking it, sharing it. So thank you again, and please continue to do that. So to start off, we wanted to define forgiveness. So this is according to psychologytoday.com. Forgiveness is the release of resentment or anger. Forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. Super fucking important. And one doesn't have to return to the same relationship or accept the same harmful behaviors from the offender. Definitely agree with that. But it's not just about the words. This other definition I really liked was from hopkinsmedicine.org. It says it is an act. It's an active process in which you make a conscious decision to let go of negative feelings, whether the person deserves it or not. And that was said by Dr. Karen Swartz, director of Mood Disorder Adult Consultation Clinic at the Johns Hopkins Hospital. So yeah, it's like, and we come back, forgiveness is more than saying sorry.
To forgive is to
You know what I mean?
forget. I think there was something about makeup sex too in that song.
It's way more about words. It's about more than words.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's something that you really have to tell yourself that you're going to do. Like you don't just I don't think it's natural per se to feel those feelings of forgiveness.
No.
You know what I'm saying? So you have to make an effort to say, no, I need to forgive this person.
Yeah.
Before you get to do anything else. So that totally makes sense.
I agree with that.
What do you think are some misconceptions that people have with forgiveness in people that like experience trauma and stuff like that?
I think that they think that once you say you forgive, that's like, it's over and it's never gonna come back. You said it, I don't remember what episode, but you described something as like throwing spaghetti at the wall. Right. And like, that's the map. I don't remember what it was, but like, that's kind of how like forgiveness works too. Like you,
like grief.
Yeah. Like you're okay and you're doing great. And then I don't know, maybe something will happen and you get triggered and you're like, ugh.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think
that's a good point.
It's a cycle.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah. It's not like if I think about my youngest Cece all the time because she'll just like run into the fridge, grab a piece of chocolate, eat the chocolate, look at me, say sorry, and then run away. And I'm just like, I gotta forgive this. Like I gotta forgive her for this. So, I know that doesn't really have much to do with what you said, which was a good point, but it does come back, and it's like you can go through the act of forgiving somebody.
Yeah.
But still get triggered because it was traumatic, I guess. You know what I mean?
Right. Depending on, like there's breakups and.
Right. But because you identified it the first time, I feel like even though it's a cycle, I feel like it's big waves that just get smaller every time it happens. So it's like it starts out and it's really hard to manage. And then you realize that you can fucking forgive people and you forgive that person. And then it comes back and it happens again, but it's not as big.
Yeah.
It's not as big as the last time. And those are incremental improvements. Yeah. You know what I mean? Which is still something. It doesn't mean that it just goes away. That's a really good point. I think, and also like that forgiveness means that you accept the person's behavior as okay. You know what I mean? Like if you do something bad and I forgive you, that doesn't mean that I accept the behavior that you did as being okay. It just means that I can love you unconditionally. And while that was a mistake that you made, I can forgive you for that. I can look past that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
And so I think those are some of the most common ones. Why do you think that forgiveness is an important aspect of mental health for veterans?
I think it's almost like not even just for veterans, for anybody who's gone through anything, but especially for veterans, it's letting go and it's almost starting over. It's like you get that sigh of relief. You know what I mean?
When you get out?
When you forgive. What do you mean by for veterans? Like for veterans.
Like, why do you think forgiveness is so important for veterans?
So when you're able to accept that, for like actually feel forgiveness, that's almost like starting over. And it's like everything is just like released. And you know what I'm saying?
It lightens the burden.
Yeah, yes.
You know what I mean? A bit. I think it's really important in the veteran community because there's a lot of animosity. I feel like that can be held. And so when you're in the military, who's the first person you need to forgive? Your recruiter.
Oh,
everybody's pissed at their recruiter. See, I said that, and it triggered a response in you.
Yeah,
I said recruiter, and you got angry.
Well, people thank me. You know, I'm like, don't thank me, thank my recruiter.
So I have an idea. We're not going to do it for the festival this year at Triple H, but I want to do it. A recruiter dunk tank.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
I get a recruiter from every branch.
Yep.
And just make it like $1 a throw. I think we'd make like $400,000 if it was $1 a throw.
I'll give you $2 if I can just stand there and press it.
How many people be like, listen, I'll give you $100, just bing, and just walk up and hit it just to dunk them. But no, I mean, you have to because a recruiter's job is to get you into the military. You get in the military, you don't necessarily, maybe you didn't get what it was you wanted. And so, you know, you're already pissed off at your fucking recruiter. You hate your drill sergeant every day. There's a reason why there's a movie about a dude who fucking killed his drill sergeant. Well, I mean, it's part of the movie.
Yeah.
But like, and then you have to go overseas and you get put in these positions where it's almost like I was angry at my family and friends for not being overseas in a way because they didn't understand. Yep. And I wish they could have understood. And I had to immediately forgive them for that because I realized it was stupid, but it is something that I felt. So I had to address it. You know what I mean?
No, of course.
But I had to, you know, and being overseas, I was very thankful that any of the combat that I saw was minimal and did not result in casualties. That being said, I forgive whoever planted the fucking IED that I hit. I forgive whoever launched the mortar at me when I was sitting in the fucking turret. I forgive that dude. And I say that again, being extremely thankful that we didn't lose anybody. Had we have lost somebody, this probably would have been a different conversation.
Absolutely.
Or a way longer, deeper conversation. So it's like the fact that we were being attacked, I forgive them because they were doing what they thought was right to them. Yeah. So it's not like a personal thing. I'm not saying it's cool to fucking blow me up, but like I forgive them for what happened. And I have such an amount of a huge amount of respect for people that can forgive others in such an extreme situation like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So the weight, what? You got a thought?
No, I was gonna say I never had any like. I forgave my higher ups, my chain of command. I had one mass sergeant who he basically sent me from my original unit to a chow hall for 3 years. So I didn't get to go on like any deployments. I didn't get to go on any like the cool, like going to different parts of Asia or anything like that. I sat in a kitchen for 3 years.
Yeah.
So it took me a long time to forgive him.
That makes sense. As you're talking, you know, somebody that I didn't realize I made an effort to forgive, but I should was my lieutenant. Because my lieutenant, when I was in Afghanistan the first time, in my opinion, he made some very questionable decisions.
Sure.
And ones that could have gotten us hurt, like really could have gotten us hurt. And there was a time where we actually didn't listen to what he had told us. And because of it, we most likely didn't hit an IED because of what his recommendations were. So it's like, I really, over time, and the more I started thinking about it, I started resenting him a bit, just because I'm like, dude, you were doing this for what? Like, were you doing this for us, or were you doing this for your fucking rank or whatever? You know what I mean? And so like, it's really hard. And I've never thought about it until now that I do need to make an effort to forgive him for that too.
It's hard because like most of the people you hate in the military are who? The higher ups.
Leadership. Yeah.
Like you don't hate the other lance corporals and corporals and PFCs. You don't hate them.
Like one or two here or there that suck, but yeah.
But for the most part, if they're E6 or above,
yeah.
You know, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just mean that that's just how it is.
Right. And something that you have to forgive.
Yeah. And it's just like the system. Like it's not like forgiving the person because they're just doing their job and maybe they just were in a really crappy way about it, you know? But I guess you have to like forgive the system and almost forgive yourself too for.
Got super meta with this. Yeah. I agree. No, I didn't mean to continue. Yeah. Continue.
Yeah.
You have to forgive the system and forgive yourself.
Yeah. For like,
because that's how the system's built.
Yeah. To like trick you into joining and conforming and becoming and whatever it is the military wants you to be, and then trying to figure out how to be yourself again after. Here's a how do you write a resume? That's 19 pages, and good luck out there, guys.
Yeah,
thanks for your service.
Yeah. Hey guys, November 11th, free chicken penne over at Applebee's. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Thank you for your service.
Seriously, it's awkward. It's weird. Like I don't know how it was, but transitioning out, man, it's just.
Yeah.
But you need, once you learn to forgive that.
Yeah. And understand that again, and it's hard for me to forgive the military.
Yeah.
Not so much the military, I guess, as the military industrial complex, like the decisions that our politicians make. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't know if I do have any resentment for somebody. I mean, probably in Washington, D.C. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if there is somebody that I don't know if I can forgive, but
there's like zero control. You're just
like, as we're talking about, I'm thinking about all these people that I need to fucking forgive in my head.
Well, I'm not trying to do that.
No. It's true. Yeah. You know, you need to do that. And the reason why is because there are a lot of negative things that come along with not forgiving people.
Yes, sir.
Again, it's like just your mindset on things affects your health, physical and mental. So according to MayoClinic.com, especially if you're being hurt by somebody that you love and or trust, that can cause a lot of anger, sadness, and confusion. And if you dwell on hurtful events or situations, grudges filled with resentment and hostility can take root. If you allow negative feelings to crowd out the positive ones, you might find yourself swallowed up by bitterness or a sense of injustice. Nobody wants to be that.
No.
Were you ever that?
Yes.
When was it? After the vision loss?
Yeah.
Yeah. Turned in like fucking Ebenezer Scrooge.
Actually, it started with even before the vision loss when I just had my surgeries, my first initial surgeries. Yeah. And then it got real bad when the doctor, I remember I went to the eye doctor and I was like, no one's ever really told me like that I'm legally like visually impaired or legally blind. And she like took her glasses off and she like made it dramatic. She's like, you're legally blind.
She made it dramatic.
I mean, not like she wasn't trying to.
No, I know, but like it seemed like it was something out of a TV show. I guess it was very theatrical. Maybe is the best word to use.
Yeah, I was waiting for McDreamy from Grey's Anatomy to walk in and be like, I can fix this.
And you'd be like, yes, you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It just got really awkward for a second. But whatever.
Man. We did an episode about this. Just let it be awkward, bro.
Yeah.
No, I think, I don't know how you found forgiveness because of something that happened, it affected your life in a very significant way, right? The loss of your fucking sight. And the fact that you were able to find forgiveness. Like, how long did you deal with the unforgiveness?
Years.
Yeah.
years.
I feel that. Yeah.
I think,
oh my God.
So it started happening 2018. Man, I would say I started being 23 and a half.
Started being more positive and forgiving and understanding.
Probably like a year ago, if that.
Yeah. Like when we started the podcast around then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And did you say to yourself, like, I need to fucking forgive these guys? Or what did you say to yourself? Did you need to do that?
It's not that I said anything to myself. It was more of, it was starting to affect the people around me. Yeah. My relationship with my wife. Right. My relationship with my parents.
You're gonna lash out. Like anybody put in a situation like that would fucking lash out. But it's about, how do you know when you've gone too far? You know what I mean? So you saw it affecting the relationships around you.
Yeah. When it was that all the time, there was no more happiness, no more joy. I could not feel happy no matter how hard I tried. And I could only get so high. You know what I mean? Before I would just like pass out.
Yeah, just to try to make it go away.
It would numb it.
Yeah.
But I would sober up and guess what? Still couldn't see. I couldn't tell you how many. I've said this before on the podcast. I couldn't tell you how many times I've gone to bed wishing and just hoping that I would wake up the next day being able to see.
Yeah.
And that was a long time of that. And it was getting to the point where it was... I don't know what would have happened like to my marriage or whatever, because it was getting pretty bad.
It was consuming you.
Yeah.
And so you just realized one day you're like, this is not sustainable. And then you just started changing? Or like, what was that process like for you?
I think once I started, I don't know, something I just felt, I think meditating helped.
Oh, I bet.
Meditating helped a lot.
Yeah.
And just getting to a point where I was, I guess, going back to acceptance. I realized that this was my life now. It's not over. It's just different. So I'm going to continue to do what I want to do. I'm going to continue to, I don't know, like be a good father and be the best husband that I can be and still do and be everything that I wanted to be, just without vision.
Dude, that's a beautiful fucking thing, man. Yeah. That's cool. And
Thank
that's amazing that you were able to say that shit to yourself and be like, nope, I'm fucking changing. Like, I'm going to change. Because that's part of it. Yeah. It's acknowledging, it's taking ownership, and that's what you fucking did, man. Yeah. And that's really cool.
Well, and then I also surrounded myself with fat and all you guys and stuff. And then it's just, I don't know, things are just, it's just a lot better being positive than it is being, you know?
Than being the dick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you know, people like
A Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
Dude, that's the whole thing. He's just a dick. He just lives by himself and eats cold soup.
Yeah.
And then he fucking hangs out with ghosts and he's like, I'm not supposed to be a dick. And then everything's better.
Yeah. So my Christmas Carol was just losing my vision.
And over the course of 3 fucking years.
Yeah.
Instead of like a night. You know what I mean? That would have been more efficient.
A night would have been great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a dark 3 years.
There's the one. I don't always find it at the right time. I'm never going to find it the first time.
We did. Every time, dude.
So
I forgive you.
Boom. There we are. Bringing it back. Look at you, Brad. Fuck. I said, look. Okay. Listen. Listen, Brad. I've told you this a billion times, but to be able to forgive for something like that, you know, it's something that I really respect about you.
Thank you.
Because that's something people should strive for. Because like you said, if you wouldn't, you don't know where you would be at. It was consuming you.
Yeah.
It was making you bitter. You were not who you really are, and it was affecting all the relationships in your life. Right. You know what I mean? That's not sustainable. And who wants to live that way? That sounds exhausting.
It was.
I don't want to live that way.
You're tired all the time. You sleep.
Be positive or in neutral. You don't have to be like super positive, but like don't be a dick. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Somewhere in the middle is nice.
So back to that article on mayoclinic.org. So if you struggle with finding the ability to forgive somebody, you may do any of the following. You may bring anger and bitterness into new relationships and experiences. Dude, I see this a lot with my friends that have gotten out of really shitty relationships. You know what I mean?
Yep.
like you get out of a shitty relationship that was super traumatic. If you didn't get a chance to forgive that other person, and then you jump into a new relationship and you might still be triggered by a lot of the things that happen there, all that other type of stuff, which is, I think, the natural human reaction to that, by the way.
Oh, for sure.
You're put in a position like that. If you can forgive yourself, it's going to allow you to save the next relationship and not continue this cycle of bullshit. You know what I mean? And then the next one, becoming so wrapped up in the wrong that you can't enjoy the moment. If you can't find forgiveness, you do that. Yep. Yeah.
Dude, I would find there would be something that would remind me of the doctors. And
Like at any point in time.
At anything. Like if we were driving and like a song came on, like, oh, this song has this word in it.
Yeah. It's got the letter O in it, like doctor, these fucks. Like you just get super pissed off.
Yeah, a little bit.
But dude, everybody's come across that person, and probably everybody's been that person at one point in their life where they're just complaining about everything.
Oh, yeah.
And then thankfully you get out of that, because then you look at that and you're like, fuck, how did anybody deal with me if I was complaining about everything? Like, ugh.
Every dad at Disney. Oh, how much?
Oh, dude, I feel, oh my God. It's like if you silenced the rides and like the kids yelling that are on the rides, all you would hear would be dad noises. Just like, how much is that? We got sandwiches in the car. Like,
where's the
beer? Beer $14. Yeah, I get pissed off about that stuff too. So yeah, forgive so you won't do that.
Yeah.
Every dad ever.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I mean, nobody likes to be around that person that's constantly finding the bad. You know what I mean? And so maybe part of that comes from an aspect in your life where there's somebody that you need to forgive because you've become so wrapped up in it and you're carrying it with you. Some other things that you might find if you struggle with finding forgiveness: becoming depressed, irritable, anxious, all kind of in line with what we've been talking about. You might feel at odds with your spiritual beliefs. I've definitely seen that happen. Lose valuable and enriching connection with others, like isolating yourself. If you can't forgive, and I've seen this happen in families, where if you can't forgive somebody, all of a sudden you're not talking to that person, and then it's spider webs. Kind of. It's like, okay, so you're not talking to that person, which means that person can talk to this person, but not that person. And then it just like runs through the family. You lose some of those connections with people that you could have beautiful relationships with because two people can't forgive each other. That's so sad. You know what I mean?
And it happens all the time.
Yeah. So it's important that we understand the process of forgiveness. So this is according to Psychology Today, how to forgive other people. So step 1, uncover your anger by exploring how you've avoided or addressed the emotion. So try to figure out, like, recognize where you're at in the moment, recognize what you're feeling and how you got to this point to not, to want to feel forgiveness. And then 2, make the decision to forgive. Begin by acknowledging that ignoring or coping with the offense has not worked, and therefore forgiveness might provide a path forward. 3, cultivate forgiveness by developing compassion for the offender. Might be, easier said than done, but nevertheless, reflect on whether the act was due to malicious intent or circumstances in the offender's life. Again, it doesn't condone the situation, but I do agree with that because this is how I judge. I mean, not judge, but sort of like when I deal with people and they do something wrong, I always look at what I think their intent was, what the intent was here. If the intent was just circumstances of the person's life or just, nothing malicious, then it's way easier to forgive. But if it was malicious, then it's much harder for me to forgive. You know what I mean?
I agree with that.
But yeah, I think talking about the intentions, very important, and understanding. And then 4, releasing the harmful emotions and reflect on how you may have grown from the experience and the act of forgiveness yourself. So yeah, and like you just said earlier, you release the emotions. You feel like a burden has been lifted because you don't feel these negative things. Well, you've just kind of released those emotions, right? You forgive somebody. Have you ever like truly resented somebody?
Yeah.
Doctors?
Yeah. I mean, and also leadership in the military.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's a little bit further than not forgiving or unforgiving at that point.
Yeah.
I guess I would agree. The feelings that I have are pretty similar to resentment, but I always think resentment's a very scary place. And I tell a lot. So on the support side, right? Spartan Shield through FAT, Project Headspace and Timing, when we're working with veterans, sometimes that means I have to work. Like if I'm working with a veteran to get them somewhere, sometimes that means I'm going to be talking to people in that veteran's life. And that veteran might have a friend, and the friend is burned out because that friend has done every single thing in their power to help this veteran out with whatever it is they have going on. And that veteran is not listening. And it's just very hard. And you watch the relationship go from a best friend to like resentment, because it's like, do you the veteran's friend is looking at the veteran like, do you not understand what I've tried to do? What I've put on the line, what I've sacrificed to try to be there for you, how much I'm trying to help you. And that could be said, in a lot of other similar situations, not just veteran situations, but like it's very hard. And when you get to that feeling of resentment, I usually tell people that's like the canary in the coal mine. Like that means that there's a problem, a really big problem, because it's like, it's just like a deep rooted negative feeling. When you resent somebody, it's like Gollum in Lord of the Rings. Like you start changing from a human being into this weird grimy fucking thing. You know what I mean? That's how I feel.
Nice.
Thank you. So how do you let go of resentment? According to the same article, Mayo Clinic, resentment can sometimes linger for years, even if we believe that we've moved on or forgotten about it. To release resentment, reflect on why the person may have committed the offense, sit with the pain, and then try to forgive the other person. Because forgiveness can instill a sense of strength that overpowers bitterness. Yeah, I think it's important to sit with the pain for a minute and then try to forgive the other person. I don't know. Like, I agree. I don't know. I just feel like I agree. Why?
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to sit with the pain.
Yeah.
You don't just like have something happen and the next day you're like, I'm choosing forgiveness. Yeah. And I'm not going to think about this.
Yep. Boop, 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 boop. Everything's fine now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you talked about this a little bit, but what are some of those the biggest examples of forgiveness in your life?
Well, actually a big one that I just thought about while you were talking was my first girlfriend.
Yeah.
In high school.
Yeah.
That was just a bad breakup. It really sat with me for a long time.
Yeah, that's true. You had your first relationships, your first like longer relationships that were like a little more serious than like a whatever, like
the 5 days
some bullshit. Yeah. But like your first one of those, there's a lot of emotion there. You got to turn on some Good Charlotte or Simple Plan or something. You know what I mean?
Welcome to my life.
You got they understand what I'm going through. It's so hard to be a teenager.
As you flip your bangs, God.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely think that is something that you like. That I think is a common thing. Like you didn't like your first breakup or whatever for like a couple of years, and you realize you're an idiot.
Yep, I'm dumb.
You were kids, like whatever. You know what I mean? You're not even the same people anymore.
Yeah,
you still kind of like you're taking it out on them, like they haven't changed at all. It's like that line in Superbad where the kid is running. It's James Franco's brother, and he like yells something at Jonah Hill's character, and Jonah Hill's like, "Hey man, remember when you peed your pants in 3rd grade?" And then the dude goes, "That was like 15 years ago." And Jonah Hill goes, "People don't forget." That's one of my favorite lines in that movie. Yes. Forgiveness.
Yes.
Yeah. So forgiving them.
Yeah.
What else? And then the doctors.
The doctors, the military, like military
Yep.
higher ups.
Yep.
I mean, that's really. I had to forgive my dad
Mm-hmm.
for essentially doing that to himself.
Yeah.
Right.
Man, that's hard. That's heavy. Yeah.
So that one was kind of tough.
Yeah.
That one's kind of hard.
Yeah, I believe it. I could imagine.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy though? When you say, because I read this question, what are the biggest examples of forgiveness in my life? And I thought about similar things like that. Forgiving whoever blew me up, shot at me, blah, blah, blah. That type of stuff. But I didn't think about forgiving myself as being the biggest example. And you didn't say anything about it either. And it's weird.
It is.
It's really weird. Because I guarantee if I asked this question and you thought about it and you did not think about forgiving yourself as being one of the biggest examples of forgiveness in your life, man, that's some insight into our heads. You know what I mean? We just care more about others.
Yeah. But now that I think about it, yeah.
Yeah, you have to forgive yourself.
Thanks for reminding me,
You're
buddy.
welcome, buddy. And it's very hard. It's a very hard thing.
Yeah.
I pulled up some examples of this, same article from before. So some ways to forgive yourself. Begin by acknowledging that you are at fault and take responsibility for the hurt you've caused. Absolutely right. That's so important. Just take ownership.
Even if the hurt you caused is to yourself.
Rip that fucking Band-Aid off.
Yep.
Take ownership.
Yep.
Taking ownership, in my opinion, is just ripping the Band-Aid off.
Yes, sir.
Because otherwise it's just going to slowly bleed out. Like, dude, it's so much, it's painful, but it's instant pain. It doesn't last as long, I think, as not acknowledging that you're at fault when it comes to forgiving yourself. Secondly, reflect on why the event occurred and identify how to avoid a similar offense in the future. Makes sense. How did I find myself in this position that I committed this act? What can I do to not do this again? Like policing yourself up. Super important, right? Number 3, then forgive yourself by focusing on the thought, saying it out loud, or writing it down. I watched a video recently about something similar. It was a dude talking about one of his ideas or treatments, I guess, if you want to call it that, to defeat depression. And it was to look in the mirror first thing in the morning. He said you would go, take your toothbrush, for whatever reason, this is what he said, brush with your right hand, brush with your left hand, and then say, I love you 10 times to yourself in the mirror. And I was like, you know what? Because if you say that to yourself, you're gonna feel better.
That's why I said when I meditated.
It's gonna make you feel weird, but eventually it's gonna get better.
That's what I said. That's why I said when I meditated. I said I am someone who loves myself, and
man,
yeah, dude. And you know what?
Yeah.
I know I talk a lot about meditation, but it really
That's
does.
good.
It really does help.
Yeah,
I highly recommend it too.
Especially if you're meditating on something so positive.
Yeah.
And you're just saying that to yourself because you are who you surround yourself with, what you surround yourself with. And it's not to say you can't listen to fucking crazy death metal music or whatever. It's not saying that at all. It's just saying if you say positive shit to yourself and listen to positive shit, bro, it's going to make you feel a little more fucking positive.
Yeah. I mean, how many, but people are like, oh, that's so hard though. It's so hard to talk about myself. But listen how you mess up. You're like, oh, I'm such a piece of shit. I suck. I'm a turd. I'm so fat. I'm gross.
You just get so down on yourself and over apologetic.
And it's so easy though.
Yeah.
And it can be just as easy to pick yourself right back up. Hey, you look pretty good today. Well, I guess not in my case. Hey, you sound pretty good today.
You smell pretty good today. It's not. Yeah, it's just not being so mean to yourself.
Yeah.
I think about that more and more as I get older about what other people's inner monologues are like. How are you talking to yourself? You know what I mean? Because that's what helps me do what I do when I work with people, work with vets and try to help them, is I think the goal is you're trying to make somebody talk more positively about themselves to themselves. I don't care what you say around everybody else. I care what you say to you when no one else is around.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So yeah, focusing on the thought, saying it out loud, writing it down, super important. Telling yourself that you forgive yourself. And then lastly, apologize to the person you wronged and try to improve their life in a meaningful way, which
I feel like that one could be pretty tough.
Depending on what happened.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
that one's iffy, I feel like. But
It's like if you burn someone's house down, you're like, hey man,
sorry, you
brought
want
donuts.
actually, hey, I'm actually having a bonfire tonight. I want to apologize.
Yeah,
Could you imagine?
This guy. Just kidding, joshing. Yeah, yeah, probably wouldn't go super well. But yeah, if you can apologize, that would be the final step in like forgiving yourself, is saying sorry. I do think that it's really important just to acknowledge and apologize to whoever that you unfortunately made that mistake with, or to. So some benefits of forgiveness. Forgiveness and forgiveness therapy have been linked to greater feelings of happiness, hopefulness, and optimism. And again, this is from the same article as before. The process of forgiveness can also protect against serious conditions like anxiety and depression and PTSD. The act was also shown to benefit cardiac patients by significantly lowering their blood pressure. So, I mean, it affects your heart. Like, if you forgive people or not, it literally affects your heart. It's nuts. Harboring anger and resentment leads the body to release stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. And whenever the person comes to mind, or whatever that trigger is, a steady stream of those chemicals can lead to stress and anxiety, as well as dampen creativity and problem solving. That's crazy to think about to me.
It's crazy, but dude, I've been there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like,
definitely been there, but it's crazy to me to get a better understanding as far as like how it's happening, why it's happening, and how common it is. So forgiveness offers many positive psychological developments, such as reducing unhealthy anger, repairing potentially valuable relationships, growing as a person, and exercising goodness in and of itself, no matter the response. In addition to personal beliefs, modeling forgiveness for others may lead to intergenerational and even societal improvement. Forgiveness therapy asks patients to confront injustice and emotional pain, and then works toward forgiveness to resolve unhealthy anger. This therapy, in conjunction with medication and or cognitive behavioral therapy, can help treat depression. Pretty beneficial that, it affects your heart, the chemicals that come out of your brain. If you just go fucking forgive them for being a dick and whatever happened.
Yep.
You know what I mean? What do you think the differences and similarities are between forgiving others and forgiving yourself?
Time.
Yeah.
I think the amount of time that it takes to do each. Again, forgiving yourself, I feel like takes a while.
Do you think it's harder to forgive yourself or forgive others?
I guess it just depends on the situation, man.
I feel like it's harder to forgive myself.
Yeah.
I think it's easier to forgive others. Like, this is the Midwest.
You
know what I mean?
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. Like, I could be completely in the right, and then you hit me accidentally.
And you apologize.
And I'd be like, I'm sorry. It's my fault.
Yeah.
It's my fault for exercising my freedom to be in this spot at this moment in time for no reason in particular. I'm sorry that I'm such a terrible person. Yeah, I can forgive others, I think, faster than I can forgive myself.
Yeah,
but you were in a bit of a different situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can understand why it would be such a hard question. Yeah. Forgiving yourself is obviously still very hard. Mistakes often become attached to underlying beliefs about ourselves, such as, I always say the wrong things, or I'll never be able to cover my bills. Self-forgiveness can require these beliefs to be identified and addressed first. This pitfall in others makes self-forgiveness especially challenging. So yeah, whenever you get into those states of mind where you just start talking super negatively about yourself, like, I'm a giant piece of shit, I'm terrible at everything, I'm not funny, I'm this, I'm that, like, you just fall into that. You know what I mean? You have to handle those issues first, like why you even jump to those conclusions before you can address maybe why forgiving is so hard for you. And this is according to an article on effectivology.com. Self-distancing is another thing that you can do. So self-distancing is the act of increasing the distance from your own egocentric perspective when assessing events and emotions that you experience. But based on this concept, there are two main perspectives that people use when assessing any situation. One is a self-immersed perspective. So a self-immersed perspective is an internal perspective that you can also use when thinking about an event that you've experienced, where the self who is analyzing the event is considered to be identical to the self who experienced it. For example, a self-immersed perspective is the perspective that you use when you ask yourself, why did I just do that? That's self-immersed. The other type is self-distanced. So a self-distanced perspective is an external perspective that you can use when thinking about an event that you've experienced, where the self who is analyzing the event is considered to be distinct from the self who experienced it. For example, a self-distanced perspective, in comparison to what I just said before with self-immersed, a self-distanced perspective is if you were to say, why did you just do that to yourself? So just that little bit of a change from just, instead of saying I, to look at it like you were a fly on the wall, to look at things like from a external perspective. And there's some positive things about that, I suppose, when you're dealing with that. So something interesting. Famous stories of forgiveness.
Yes.
There's some.
I have a couple. Well, they're not really like famous.
Like your first one when I asked you about this in the car. I'm like, do you know any famous stories about forgiveness?
Dude, the number one, the big guy upstairs.
You're like,
Jesus.
I was like, oh yeah. Not super religious, dude. I'm agnostic. Not against it. Yeah, I've talked about that. But like, yeah, man.
That is like
Jesus. It's kind of what he does.
That is like the forgiveness story.
That's pretty much his thing. So yeah. A little bit of forgiveness there.
Another one, Pope John Paul II.
What happened?
There was an assassination attempt, and then he went to go and visit his assassin in prison, and he forgave him.
That's crazy to me, because it's like, I think about like, what were you thinking as the Pope when you walked in? You're just like, this guy's a sneaky one.
Bang, bang.
Like, pew. Like, dude, the fact that you can walk into that situation and be like, hey, man, it's cool. Like, I respect that, bro. I really respect that type of mentality. You have to walk in there and say that to somebody who tried to kill you.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's impressive.
Yep. Another one, I don't remember the gentleman's name. He was a firefighter, worked a shift super late, coming home, got in a car accident, killed a pregnant woman and I believe her 19-month-old daughter. And the husband asked to have his sentence completely erased, and he forgave him.
Yeah.
For that.
Huge amount of respect.
Yep.
You know what I mean? To find that peace.
Yeah.
Like, that is a emotionally developed person.
Yep. To
be able to navigate through all that.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
And then the last one is another case of murder, but there was a kid, it was a news story. I believe he was like 11, killed a 3-year-old, got arrested, went to jail, obviously. And the parents of the 3-year-old who was murdered went and visited him and told him that they forgave him.
Oh, man.
But again, I think forgiveness, depending on the situation, and the big part is for yourself.
Yeah.
Like, not in a selfish way, but I think it is for you.
Your body has developed a mechanism to start self-destructing, essentially, when you do these negative behaviors. Like, when you hold on to the unforgiveness and your body starts dumping these chemicals and you start saying super negative things to yourself, like, it's destroying who you are as a person.
Yes.
Like, we've evolved. Like, that's something that's evolved, I don't know, developed over time, over thousands, millions of years, whatever it's been. You know what I mean? Because that's how detrimental it is. And we still do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
Jesus, he also forgave.
And Jesus. Yes.
And Jesus. And I have read, I couldn't remember the stories, but when my mom and my godfather had a Filipino restaurant in town, it's called Bahay Kubo. It's by Olivet Nazarene University. And my godfather told me a story, and he showed me, I swear he showed me the article. It was like a news clipping, and there was this guy from like World War II, And I think it was with like a Japanese soldier, like him and a Japanese soldier, I think, that moved to America. They had become like friends like 80 years later, or they were in their 80s. And like they realized that they were on the same fucking battlefield pretty much in like World War II. It was like a situation like that. And like, dude, can you imagine? Like, I feel like I would feel a profound level of respect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you and I were in the same situation, just doing our best, kids fighting, killing, dying in some war that probably didn't matter. And like, here we are today. You know what I mean? Like, man, that's pretty cool to me.
Yeah. That's
there is a profound impact that forgiveness, I think, has on individuals, families, communities, and same thing with unforgiveness. And again, I'm not condoning any behaviors here, but it's like when we looked at what happened with like the George Floyd murders, whenever anybody is murdered, especially like a young black man you know what I mean? Like, there is an uproar, and I don't know what the right answer is. You know what I mean? Because there are so many deeply rooted emotions of pain from the loss of life. But then as a result of that, it's just destruction, which isn't doing anything. It's not building anything. It's not honoring anybody. You know what I mean? It's just like every side of it is just gross and sad and tragic. You know what I mean? But when you see that unforgiveness, you see that pain, that bitterness, that resentment in a community, bro, that's a scary thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's just a terrifying thing, I think, to have to deal with. As far as overcoming barriers to forgiveness, what do you think the most common barriers to forgiveness are?
I think the first step to forgiveness is acceptance.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty big barrier. Just
like accepting? Oh,
accept
yeah.
the situation, accept what happened.
You don't want to accept it. Yeah.
Yeah. So accepting all of that, I think, is step one. And I think that's the most important part to forgiveness.
Well, I also think that pride is like one of the biggest barriers to forgiving.
Yes.
Pride is always like an ego, because if I forgive you, it might make it look that I'm weak because I forgave you. You know, categorically, like in history, like I should have killed you. I should have done something terrible, but I'm forgiving you. You know what I mean? And it's like, how does that make me look? And then, so I think that pride, you know, getting over my pride was a big thing in the early days of the nonprofit, because I heard people say like negative things, and I had to realize that if I harbored this anger, like we talked about earlier, all it was going to do is destroy me. It wasn't going to do anything beneficial. It would ruin more things for me. Literally ruin more relationships. You know what I mean? Like we talked about. So it's just like, I have to forgive. You have to forgive. You have to get over that pride. That pride doesn't matter at the end of the day. It only matters to you because you fucking think it matters. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like just get over it, and it's going to be so much better. Rip that bandage off and just be done with it. Do you think forgiveness can contribute to finding meaning and purpose after trauma?
Yes.
How so?
Absolutely. Because I think that's step one. That's once you forget, like going back to what I said earlier, once you forgive, you're just in clarity. It's like you're just like a clean slate, like a blank canvas.
It's true growth. It's definitely growth. It's hard to think about other aspects of life that you can say, this is when I grow. Like going through death and grief, loss, pain like that, you can tell in the moment, oh, I'm growing. I can feel it. I can feel that I'm growing from this. Same thing with forgiveness. That's what that relieving that burden off your shoulder.
Yep.
And realizing I don't have to act the way I was acting. I can change, and it's okay. Mm-hmm. And it feels way better. And then you see other people acting how you used to act, and then it makes you feel even worse because you're like, oh man, that's how I used to act. You know what I mean? And you try to talk to those people, and sometimes they're ready and sometimes they're not.
Yep.
But we've all been there.
Yes, sir.
Here are some ways that I found to move towards forgiveness. Again, this was on the effectivology.com article. So just to move forward to forgiveness, not necessarily forgiving, but just understanding that maybe I need to entertain the idea of forgiving this person. Here's some things you can do. Recognize the value of forgiveness for all of the reasons we just said and how it can literally improve your life in like every way. Like there's no downsides. You know what I mean? It's not like if you're walking around forgiving people, somebody's gonna be like, look at this asshole walking around forgiving people.
Yeah, when's that something called Jesus an asshole?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Probably not. Probably not.
Never.
There's weird people out there.
I guess so.
Yeah, so it can definitely improve your life.
Yeah.
And you need to understand that. You need to identify what needs healing and who you want to forgive, even if you can't necessarily forgive them in the moment. Tell yourself, I want to forgive this person and I need to heal this part of my life. Join a support group or see a counselor. Acknowledge your emotions about the harm done to you. Recognize how those emotions affect your behavior and then work to release them. Understanding your triggers and knowing, you know, when you're starting to feel something come on in your behavior and trying to get ahead of things, I think. And then the next step is choosing to forgive the person who's offended you. Because again, like we said, you have to make a conscientious effort to forgive. You have to do that. So you have to make the decision in your brain, I am going to forgive this person now.
Yep.
And then release the control and power that the offending person and situation have had in your life. That's powerful because it's true. Release the control and power that that offending person had in your life, because that's what's happening. If you can't forgive somebody, you're allowing, or something, you're allowing that person or thing to control and have power on your life because they're affecting your mood now, and they're literally ruining a bunch of shit for you, and they're not even doing anything. You're just letting them do it.
Dude, this episode has hit me in the feels, man. Jeez.
Yeah. It's important.
I mean, everything you're talking about has happened, happened with.
Yeah.
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 It like my hatred towards them, it seriously controlled my my entire life, dude.
And how unfair is that to you?
It's super, because they went on and kept living their lives and were making hundreds of thousands of dollars and whatever. And I had to change my entire life.
Yeah.
I had to relearn life.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of resentment.
They had a power over your mindset, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And that's insane that we give anybody or anything any control over our mind. I need to give you permission to make me feel some kind of way.
And that's what forgiveness does.
Yes.
You give the permission. That's what that is.
Yeah. 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 Very important. So yeah, releasing the control and power, like, man, that's very, very important. So what happens if you cannot forgive somebody? So forgiveness can be hard, especially if the person who hurts you does not admit to the wrongdoing. If you find yourself stuck, here are some things you can do. You can practice empathy, try to see the situation from the other person's point of view. Easier said than done sometimes, but it never hurts to try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, right? Ask yourself about the circumstances that may have led the other person to behave in such a way. Perhaps you would have reacted similarly if you faced the same situation. So I think about this one a lot in like traffic, because it's so easy to get super pissed off at somebody when they cut you off. Right? It's super easy when anything happens, and you're going from point A to point B, to just be angry at somebody because they're just some nameless person on the street. You know what I'm saying? But to forgive that person and understand, you don't know what kind of day they've had. You don't know what news they just got right before they got in their car to go wherever they're going. You got to forgive them in that moment. When somebody and that's something I've been trying to make an effort on, and I got it from like a Russell Brand quote. Like Russell Brand was on some interview on a podcast and he just talked about people talk about being enlightened, but then they get pissed off at somebody for cutting them off on the interstate. I was like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like those are the moments where you need to find that peace, is when somebody just does something immediate for no particular reason and it just triggers you in some way, and just catching yourself right there and just be like, no, I can't let that bother me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Reflect on times when others have forgiven you. That's very important. So if you're having a hard time forgiving other people, remember what it was like when you needed somebody to forgive you, how you needed somebody to treat you when you made a mistake. Think about that. One thing that I've said, I feel like is similar here, is like, think about, I tell other, on the advocacy side, when we're helping out other people, it's like, think about what you needed on your worst day. Be that person for somebody else on their worst day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can write in a journal, you can pray or use guided meditation. You can talk with a person that you found to be wise and compassionate, such as a spiritual leader, mental health provider, or an impartial loved one or a friend. Be aware that forgiveness, like you said earlier, is a process. Even small hurts may need to be revisited and forgiven again and again. If you've done everything you can to fix the mistake, but you continue to beat yourself up, try a technique called self-distancing, which I mentioned earlier. So switching your internal dialogue from first person to third person, and consider how an outsider would see the situation. That can help you cultivate self-compassion and silence your inner critic. So instead of saying, God, I'm such an idiot, saying, like, you're such an idiot, makes me feel better. Because I called you an idiot. I think that's how it works. I don't think that's how it works.
You're an idiot.
Using, like, instead of saying, why did I make such a mistake? Why do you make mistakes?
Yeah.
Trying to take yourself out of the situation and be like a fly on the wall, because we're always nice to other people than we are to ourselves. So we have to look at it from a perspective like we're trying to talk to somebody else.
Yeah.
Because we're just dicks to ourselves all the time. We're just so hard on ourselves, which is so unfortunate. You know what I mean? So yeah. So I think we've covered forgiveness, my friend.
It's more than saying sorry.
What do you think? Dude, is there anything else you got? You want to finish the rest of the song? That's the only part of that song that I know. I just remember in a couple parts, she's like, forgiveness. She like whispers it.
Yeah, I know there's a part where it's like, well, how it starts out, like, forgiveness more than saying sorry. To forgive is to forget. And there's something about makeup sex.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all I got,
Great
though.
movie.
It is a good one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then again, so today we talked all about forgiveness. We talked about the benefits of forgiveness and the issues you can have for not forgiving others. We gave you some tips on what you could do. And we talked about self-distancing a little bit. So we hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe, tell a friend about this. Keep telling us what you like and what you don't like. We'll always listen and try to make changes as we can. I believe we're going to start cranking out some merch pretty soon. We'll see, or we'll hear. Or we'll smell. And what do we have coming up? Triple H. We got our festival coming up. Heroes, Hogs, and Hot Rods is coming up this year. I was going to try to do a live podcast. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think so.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Hey, there's always next year.
There's always next year, but this is our 5-year anniversary. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be awesome. I'm excited.
Anthem is headlining. We're selling wristbands for $5, and it gets you, if you're one of the first 300, you get a limited edition patch, the Heroes, Hogs, and Hot Rods 5-year anniversary patch.
Nice.
And with the purchase of a $5 wristband, that wristband allows you to walk around with alcohol. We got a car show, craft vendors, strongman competition, barbecue competition, and music and mental health veteran resource fair. And the Air Force is bringing an F-16 simulator, because they're the Air Force, and whatever else. They're bringing a bunch of crazy stuff. Like, you can tell which branch is the best funded branch when you ask all the recruiters to show up and the Air Force has an F-16 simulator. Army, Marines, pull up bar.
Yeah, they're full.
And just to mess with them, the Air Force also has a pull-up bar, and it's like connected to all these supercomputers and stuff to like show you all this crazy stuff while you're doing pull-up. Like you can tell the Army and the Marines welded that son of a bitch right before they got here. Like they found some rebar out back in the motor pool. They're like, listen, we got to go to this thing. We got to make a pull-up bar.
And there's ammo cans filled with sand too.
Oh my
Come on,
God.
there's more than that.
Yeah. So Heroes, Hogs, and Hot Rods, June 1st, Square on 2nd in Mantino. It's a lot of fun. So please check that out. We're also starting a golf league. It's going to be a veteran scramble over at the Elks. Can't thank the Elks enough. That's going to be every other Sunday at 2:30. It starts this Sunday, the 19th. Information on that can be found on our website, projectheadspaceandtiming.org. So again, thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. We hope that through today's episode, we helped you just a little bit go from being freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional to truly being fine about forgiveness. Thanks again. 172nd best mental health podcast in Cambodia.
Boom.